Kon Knueppel may not have been the most exciting prospect ever, but that doesn't mean he wasn't worth the fourth overall pick either. The 6'6" wing admittedly fits a lot of stereotypes, being a white player that has below average athleticism, plays hard on both ends of the floor, lights out shooting ability, and also played at Duke University. But I also think he was the pick the Hornets needed to make, and on top of that, I think he has more upside than being just a quote-unquote safe pick. But quickly, before we go any further, if you're new and like basketball, I'd really appreciate if you would like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball, and if you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content. And doing all those things are the best way to let YouTube, but more importantly, myself know that you enjoy the content, so I can make more of it in the future. But let's talk about Kon Knueppel, and I think a good place to start is what he's good at. Obviously, you could tell by the title, you might be able to tell by what I mentioned in the intro, he is a great shooting prospect. The numbers back it up. 40.6% from 3 on 5.3 attempts per game, 91.4% from the line on 3.3 attempts per game. The form is really good. He has really good shooting touch, and he checks off all the boxes from the numbers to the tape to the volume. It's all there that suggests he's not someone that projects to be an elite shooter. He's already an elite shooter, but he's more than that in my opinion. While I wouldn't describe him as an elite on-ball player, he is a capable one. He's not the most explosive athlete, but what he doesn't have in athleticism, he does somewhat make up for with his craftiness. He's somebody that around the basket can use physicality. He has a really strong frame. He's not a small guy. He stands around 6'6", 220 pounds. He has good physicality. I think he can get even stronger, and he has good handle. Somebody that can create in spurts, but maybe isn't your primary. And that's okay. Not every player is going to be your primary, and having a guy that can be as great as he can be off the ball, that is also more than capable on the ball, is very valuable to have. He also is a pretty good connecting playmaker. Never is going to be your primary, but he keeps the ball moving. He isn't a black hole. He doesn't get tunnel vision. He makes good reads. He has good vision. And it's just the ideal secondary option on paper. I also think he has a good motor on defense. We'll talk about the limitations on defense in a bit, but I do think he gives effort. I don't question that. And really, given his athletic profile, that's all you can really ask for. But regardless of that, I do think you look at his offensive profile as somebody that's going to enter the league and likely be a great shooter out the gate, while also being able to handle some on-ball reps and also be a good passer. I think there's more upside here than just being maybe somebody you look at on paper if you only watch highlights and think, oh, he's just going to be a spot-up shooter. I think the upside is a lot higher than that. But he isn't perfect, no prospect is, and his athleticism isn't good. I would say among guys I've evaluated who I think you could justifiably take aside. So when I say this, I'm not saying it's a reason I wouldn't take him this high, but to me, he has the weakest athletic profile among players that I've evaluated that I think you could justify taking with the fourth overall pick. He's easily the worst, but again, that also speaks to how good I think he is in the other areas of his game skill-wise, that I would still take him this high despite having a pretty weak athletic profile, not the most explosive. You know, the footwork in terms of lateral movement is not great. But I also think it does somewhat limit his creation upside. I think he could be a good creator, but maybe not a great one. I think that when you look at his lack of explosiveness, it may prevent him from getting by a decent amount of players among the elite defenders, but there will be guys who will be able to cook as well. But I do think it takes him from being like a full-time creator to like a part-time creator, and we'll talk about that when I talk about like the upside overall with him as a player. And also, it will limit him on defense. He does give effort, So that is a positive. It's not like you have to worry about him being a liability on defense because of things within his control. But even though it's not completely within his control, he is going to be a liability more than likely. I think he might be able to grow if he just gets a bit stronger to being like a competent defender that's around that Mendoza line. But really, that will be a question mark with him, regardless, in my opinion. But regardless of the flaws and the strengths, there are a lot of things he can improve on and things he's good at already. And I think his strengths do really outshine his weaknesses on tape, even if the weaknesses are apparent. But I really like his fit with the Hornets regardless of all that because he can thrive as a catch and shoot player off LaMelo. LaMelo, when he plays, is one of the best playmakers in the league, somebody that makes those around him better. So Knueppel is going to get a lot of opportunities that are easy. He's an elite floor spacer that I think will fit well next to Brandon Miller. They have somewhat similar profiles, guys who I believe profile more as high-end secondaries than primary lead options. I think Miller is the better of the two. I think Miller was a much better prospect as well, just because he's a better pull-up shooter. I think there's more hope of like being a real mid-range assassin with Brandon Miller, somebody that I think is a much better athlete, much better defender. But similar profiles of guys who look and say, okay, they could be high-end two, or maybe not high-end twos, but high-end secondary options, but maybe not your primary. And I think those two fit well next to each other because no matter how you view it, having two guys that can handle on-ball reps but thrive off the ball, those two can play together no matter what. And it just gives the Hornets stability after, especially what happened with the last draft when they took Tidjane Salaün, who's a major project that I don't really have much hope for based off his rookie year. And just looking at like the good picks the Hornets have made, they all profile with definitive skills like Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball and Kon Knueppel. Mark Williams is another example of that when he's been healthy. But then you'll get the picks that have not worked out. Your James Bouknight, your Kai Jones, your Tidjane Salaün doesn't look to be trending in the right direction, even though it's only been a year. So just to get somebody that will provide something for you is a positive for the Hornets. Now, how good can Kon Knueppel be? I think that's what a lot of you want to know. And I think best case scenario, he is a capable number 2 that is an elite number 3. I think of guys like Desmond Bane and Austin Reeves. Not one-to-one comparisons. Bane is a better athlete than Knueppel is, even though they have similar frame profiles. I think Austin Reeves will be somebody that's probably better in terms of on-the-ball ability, but that similar level of player. Somebody that if they need to be, they can be your number 2 and hold their own at times. But when they're the number 3, that's when your team is dangerous. And I think he's somebody that could be like a fringe all-star type of guy. Maybe not somebody that's like a perennial all-star. Like I don't think his ceiling's as high as VJ Edgecombe or Dylan Harper, definitely Cooper Flagg. But somebody that I think could make a few all-star teams in the right situation and the right context. But that would be the best case outcome in my opinion, and that would be more than worth taking at 4th overall. Getting a guy that can be a high-level starter, that can make a few all-star teams. If you get that at pick 4, that is more than worth it. I think the median outcome, you're looking at someone that can produce maybe to the level of what I think his ceiling is, but that would be in the context of they're on a bad team. Like the numbers they put up on the bad team would be what I think his ceiling would put up on a good team. And I think of guys like Anthony Simons or on the court, disclaimer, I know he's been in the news recently, Malik Beasley. Guys that can put up, if you give them their own team, 20 points per game. But realistically, they're closer to like 13 to 14 point per game scores on good teams. And I think the low end, he's going to be something because he can shoot the basketball, he can make plays. Maybe a liability on defense. So again, these aren't one-to-one comparisons because Moody is a better defender, but Moses Moody is somebody that's like, okay, he's in your rotation, gives you like 9 to 10 points per game. Or Kevin Huerter is another good example, although Huerter can be your starter. Really, I don't see a world where Knueppel doesn't work out to some extent with his skill set. Like, he'll bring value with something, but I also think the ceiling is a lot higher. Like, I think, again, like a legit number 3, maybe number 2 if you need it. That's a really good player. And I think that's a lot more than just being like a spot up shooter. So I really like Kon Knueppel. I really like this pick for the Hornets. I think we'll see with LaMelo, but I really think Knueppel and Miller, those are 2 good building blocks to have. I think those could be like you set and start. If they both work out, that could be your number 2 option in Brandon Miller and your number 3 option in Kon Knueppel. And maybe LaMelo gets healthy and becomes the player that I think he's talented enough to be, and he's your number 1, and you got something. Or maybe you are terrible next season and you get an AJ DeBansta or a Darren Peterson or a Cameron Boozer, and they can be your long-term number 1. But regardless, I think with Miller and Knueppel, you have something special. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below.